For some political analysis, we're joined now by Chief Election and Campaign Correspondent Robert Costa and Ed O'Keefe. Ed, let me start with you because it was last night, probably around, 7 or so, when all of us got the email from the president's attorney and then a statement from the White House about this latest discovery of documents. This drip, drip, drip just continues.
It does, and this is by design now. The White House counsel's office, his personal attorney, making very clear that they withheld this information until after the search was conducted at his home in Delaware. And this is how we're going to be learning about things, essentially. Once steps are taken by the Justice Department, in this case an FBI search of a sitting president's home, a pretty extraordinary development in this case, and something we've not seen before, but a step that they made very clear they took voluntarily. They were there for this, attorneys were, and they took away 6 more items marked classified, for now a total of about 25 to 30 classified documents found at his former office here in Washington and then at his home in Delaware. And it raises questions about, what was that material? What more could be found? Where else might they search?
Right. And what the classification level is. I mean, the reporting on this is continuing, but the politics, Bob, as you know, were laid bare there with Congressman Turner talking about outrage, frankly. That in so many different locations, these materials could have been found. And it changes the calculus for Republicans, and it gives them an advantage, frankly, politically, to make this argument.
The Republicans remain confrontational with this White House. They see divided government as an opportunity, especially in the House, where they have the majority, to continue this investigation. Even as the Justice Department continues its own investigation, you have someone like the Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan now mounting his own investigation of the FBI and the Justice Department and the intelligence agencies. This also comes politically at a moment of transition for the Biden White House. Ron Klain, the chief of staff, has signaled that he will be departing his position in the coming months. He has been a key link to progressives, has helped Biden work on signature legislation like the American Rescue Plan, and he's lasted quite a long time for a chief of staff, 2 years.
Well, I'm glad you bring that up, because the other thing that the departure of the chief of staff raises questions about is this looming policy and political conversation about the debt ceiling. Who runs that point on that? Obviously, the Treasury Secretary has a huge role, but in terms of talking to the Hill and the negotiations, who's doing that if the chief of staff is leading?
What I'm told from people inside the West Wing is that President Biden himself has a relationship with Mitch McConnell, the Senate Republican leader, of course, with Chuck Schumer, the Senate Democratic leader. They are in some ways going to try to cut out Speaker Kevin McCarthy and the House Republicans. There's not an appetite among Democrats to put spending cuts on the table at all. They would like to see a clean debt limit extension. And Jim Clyburn, one of the top Democrats in the House, recently told me he could see a scenario where centrist House Republicans band together with House Democrats for a clean debt limit extension.
And that outreach is underway. We've heard from the White House saying that they are trying to reach out to these new members. There's going to be a meeting this week with newly elected members invited to the White House to come and meet the president, say hello. And you better believe that one of the ways they will try to work this is, are there enough Republicans out there, maybe in districts that the president won, or that just know they're going to face a tough re-election, who can be at least talked to about the risks and the potential to work together on this issue.
Clarify that. When you say cut out the Speaker of the House, are you saying it's 212 Democrats plus however many, 15 or more, Republicans they can pull over, rather than Republicans moving to lift the debt ceiling?
What I'm hearing is that many more moderate centrist House Republicans, those who are traditional Republicans, are looking at this and they don't want to get in front of McCarthy. They know he has to meet with Biden in the coming weeks and tell the president he wants this and that in terms of a deal. But if a deal falls apart, as Ed said, they're starting to have back-channel conversations of could a coalition of 10 to 15 House Republicans get together with 200-plus House Democrats to get a clean extension through the House.
Not the prettiest way to do it, but certainly worth considering and something they have to talk about.
Right. Well, when you talk about Leader McConnell and President Biden, they have history going back to the last time
You're so right.
we went to the brink with the debt ceiling in 2011. But the politics are even more complicated than they were back then. So how do they, carry out this strategy? I feel like you're laying out on ESPN the different potential strategies on the playing field here.
Privately, I'm told President Biden and Senator McConnell have chuckled behind the scenes with longtime friends about how at this stage in divided government, it's these two men who have long been friends who are being counted upon to perhaps cut a deal. I remember when I first started covering Congress a decade ago, I would remember Vice President Biden was the one who came to the Capitol to meet with Senator McConnell to cut a deal on that so-called fiscal cliff way back then. So they have that history, and they were recently in Kentucky together, showing at least not political solidarity, but in terms of a personal relationship, there's a real rapport.
But politically, this still is something that we're going to be, it can be very complicated. I mean, you can't completely cut the House out of the situation, right?
You can't. But look, this is also helpful for the White House. It's a helpful foil, in essence, because one of the things they want to keep doing, other than talking about that potential fight, other than talking about this search of his home over the week on Friday, is about the economy. And so you can go out there as president, as a cabinet secretary, as the vice president, and say, look, the economy's on the rebound. We seem to have held off inflation for the most part. Things are in decent shape. It's going to get much worse if Republicans allow this brinksmanship to continue, and even worse so if they go after things like carving into Social Security and Medicare as a way to pay for things.
Those are the third rail, but then you add in the potential of cutting defense spending, and that also becomes problematic.
Right.
But it does seem like Republicans are shifting the conversation in some way towards the need to have a conversation about fiscal spending.
That is exactly right. And keep an eye on Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia. He is telling his colleagues he is open to having a discussion about spending cuts. So as many top Democrats say, hey, we want a clean extension, they now have Senator Manchin and a few others saying maybe we should negotiate a little bit. So there's a tension point in that area.
We have to see if there are other Senate Democrats also willing. And hopefully we'll talk to one of them ahead on the show. Thanks to both of you.